Well, hello, my friend. Thank you so
How you
much for
doing?
jumping in,
Oh, my
being here
pleasure.
with me. I was telling you before we jumped in and got started, in many ways, you as a creative and an artist are a forerunner, and you've gone ahead and had success in your effort in the NFT space that other people would look at and say, how did how did he do that? I want to do that. I want to bring all my creativity that I've worked on for decades as an artist, and in your case, it crosses traditional boundaries. But it's just nice to be able to bring you on and have you tell a bit about your story. So maybe for those that don't know much about you, you could just start by giving us a little background on yourself as a creative and an artist, and kind of what brought you here in the NFT space.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. So my actual job, I work as a musician. I've done that for about 10 years now. I really just I studied bass guitar in London. I did a degree. And so that's kind of been my in real life job. So, festivals and touring and session work and teaching and everything that includes that. And when the pandemic hit, I really all my music kind of got put on pause. So it actually kind of gave me a little bit of space to breathe. So in that time, I focused on my artwork. I studied that a bit at college as well, but that was always really just came second to my music career. But when everything got put on pause, I really just kind of took a break and just painted every day. So I did that for about, I'd say, close to 18 months. And then one day I was in my fiance's back garden. It was a beautiful day, and I was painting away outside, and I was listening to a podcast, which I said before you were familiar with, Jackass, and it's with Steve-O, who I'm a massive fan of as well. And he had a guest on, which was Mark Cuban. And they were talking about all this amazing stuff, and they mentioned the NFT space. And it's something I'd heard of, but I'd never really kind of delved in properly. I'd made little notes here and then just to check it out, but this was a great conversation. So I pretty much went straight from that interview, that podcast, and I went upstairs and I minted straight away. And obviously I made loads of mistakes and I should have done my research a bit more, but it was great. I was on the blockchain. I had a collection that I've literally been creating for 18 months. I had all the pieces there. So I was like, well, this is perfect. So that from there, I kind of spent the next few months kind of jumping into the NFT space. So learning about the community, learning about the whole thing, researching, and just generally making loads of mistakes, really. And it went really well. And after a couple of months, I kind of started to build a little bit of a community, and my pieces started selling quite well. And so this was amazing. So that's kind of, I went even further. I started, investing more into my website and everything. It was amazing. It was the first time I was ever being able to pay in cryptocurrency for a service. And so that was really a big milestone for me. And so the pieces started selling quite well. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And then one day, someone messaged me and asked me, how did I get into the NFT space? And I told the story. I was like, I was listening to Steve-O and Mark Cuban having a chat, and that's how I really got into the space. So I put a little tweet out. I tagged Steve-O and Mark Cuban, and I didn't think of anything of it. And I think it was the next day, I got a tweet from Mark Cuban saying, he liked my artwork, and then I should put it on lazy.com, which is a really cool gallery website, and really cool. So, and coincidentally, just that week, I'd already done that. I had put my work in there.
That's
so
awesome.
I sent a message back saying, I actually just done that, right? And then next thing you know, he tweets out my collection to his 8-9 million followers he has on Twitter. And my phone just goes ballistic, and all my pieces started selling, and like I was in a Discord chat. I was fairly new to Discord, and everyone was celebrating, and it was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And that's kind of really where things kind of started. Like that was where I really go, wow, this is so amazing. I've kind of got a bit of a career here. And so that's like, from there opened up so many doors, from collaborating with amazing artists, getting to know amazing people in the space, chatting to people daily. I've got friends who I've never met in person, but they're friends, I really chat to them all the time. And that was back in October, and so it's close to a year now. So many things have happened since then. But that's kind of really my initial journey into the space.
And then you're doing a collaboration with Emily Faye, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you want to, because I think that's part of what we were excited about having you come to NFT.London was you and Emily being able to share the story of collaboration. You have so many people that are part of the project from other really successful projects. So the collaboration involved, I think, is a unique story. Can you just give us some insight on how did this happen, this partnership, and what is to come?
Yeah. So Emily Faye is, first of all, she's actually my fiance. We been together. We've been a long distance relationship actually for 8 years, and we got engaged last year, and we met at music university as well. So we're very like, she works as a full-time musician, like a country pop artist, but also a songwriter. I work as a bass player mainly. So we have our separate circle. She has her own band and I have my own band, but we play together a lot. So we collaborate all the time. And obviously I was kind of really heavily into the Web3 space, and she was kind of on the outside. She obviously, I was talking to her a lot about it, but I really believe that it's something, the NFT space and its NFTs is going to really revolutionize the music industry. I'm a genuinely 100% believe that. So I was chatting to Emily and we were like, I really think together we could do something quite interesting. And it started off because she's an amazing songwriter. She does something every week called 5 Minutes on Friday, where she writes a song in 5 minutes. So it's a verse, chorus, she records it 5 minutes. She's incredibly talented. And I was like, well, we need to do something like that. And she wrote a song I thought was incredible, and it was based on her goddaughter. And we had this idea, she had the idea actually, where it was, she was going to write a song for every year of her goddaughter's life. Okay, so she'd just been born. So I was like, well, that's really interesting though. That could be something. So we developed this collection, and we've been doing it for about 6 months now. The premise is that it's 100 songs, and Emily is a very advocate of championing.
I can't even say it right either. That word, everybody, champion.
Women in music and in general. She does something called Write Like a Girl, where she does it with female musicians, and they go around the UK and they do tours, and it's amazing, and it works with female producers, and just because of they're quite underrepresented in the music scene in general, female songwriters. Anyway, so she's a huge advocate. So I was like, well, let's do something towards that. And so Emily wrote 100 songs based on a woman's life, so every different year. I was like, well, these are amazing. And then we kind of mentioned it to a few people that I was chatting to, and they said, oh, I would really love to get involved. I don't know how. So we came up with the idea that we would interview members of the NFT space. So many of like the huge founders of projects and female-led projects and artists and creatives and collectives. We just sent them a little questionnaire, just asking them, a few things about their life or an experience. And what Emily's done is, for certain ages, they would tell an age that this story, and Emily's kind of changed the lyrics and create lyrics and use those lyrics in a song. So what we've got here now is we've got 100 songs, all about like associated with different inspirational people from the space, and including Emily's own inspirations. And then we also have I've created 100 pieces of art for a thing. It's all taken quite some time. It's all like nothing's generated. It's all, we've been there in the studio and recording and singing 100 times. Like to do it. We've also like got a load of our musician friends involved. So there's 100 different like unique guitar solos and everything. So it's quite interesting to have that as a kind of a project itself. And to add more of the Web3 element, there's utility as well. So there's like obviously like live gigs, and there's like metaverse shows and different things like that. What we're actually doing is, most of it we're wanting to use when we do release the project. It's not out yet, and we're wanting just to use the profits to really commission more musicians, more mainly female, more artists, everything, and use the funds from that to commission them to create pieces of art, and again use them in the same way and promote them. And so it's a really community feeling with this, and there's also tons more of exciting utilities to come with it too. But that's kind of the idea of the project, and we're really excited about it.
Well, I'm glad I asked you about that. We are looking forward to having the community learn more at NFT.London, November 3rd and 4th. I want to ask you some stuff about your perspective as a creative, because it feels like you've continued to create one-of-one artwork. And there's all these augmentations of raw manual labor around creativity happening in today's world. So artists are using generative forms to create artwork. Even musicians are using generative approaches at creating music. Not that that's new. I mean, Mozart was toying around with generative art, centuries ago. Now we have things like Dolly and, Mid-Journey and so many others that are just taking text and creating artwork. So yeah. Can you, as an artist and as a creative that's been faithful to create 100 one-of-one art pieces for Emily's 100 one-of-one songs, and so you've continued this manual heavy lifting process of creating individual unique art and bringing that to market through this new digital means. But as that's happening, you see this groundswell of augmented art, if we want to call it that, in some form or fashion. So what's your take on that? And why do you believe what you believe about this development? I'm interested in what you have to say.
It's a great question. So like AR in general, I kind of see it as a bit of a tool, really. I kind of see it as a different form of art. You're right that it can be, it can take the labor out of certain things, but I mean, I've experimented with it, I haven't released anything. For me, my technique would be, I would, take my text or something, or it'd be interesting. I'm interested. I like to see things evolve. I like to see the artwork evolve. So I might take song lyrics from Emily and put them in and see what comes up. With me personally, I don't tend to release just the image that is generated. I kind of like to have a bit more of me into it, whether it's photoshopping some of my art into it, or painting it, or creating some music to it, or something just a little more unique. But I think it's a really unique movement. I'd say, in 100 years' time, you're going to look back at this point and go, this was the birth of AI art, and there's going to be famous AI artists out there, just like there's famous painters and musicians, and so it's an exciting space. In terms of music and generated music, that's interesting, really interesting. I don't know. I just being a musician, there's something about, for me, I love playing it, and I love that live show and everything involved around that. Maybe in 20 years' time we'll see robots performing a computer generated art, and I'd be there, and who knows what's going to be happening. But it's a really interesting thing. Yeah, I'm actually quite excited about it.
Well, I love that response. I think that's a moderate response to this, and this is a big transition for creatives. We've never had an issue with DJs mixing different albums together and being a co-creator of that art. And so in some regards, this is kind of like a DJ of AI, right? Creating these different art pieces. And there's so many different ways this is being done. So that's why I was just happy to kind of hear your perspective. I want to ask, before we kind of wrap up, what's your thoughts on partnerships, on collaboration? It's one thing for you and your fiance, Emily, to collaborate, but it's not the two of you alone. You have team members from World of Women, Boss Beauties, Deadfellas, Long Necklace Ladies, Fame Lady Squad, The Divines, Time, and a bunch of other independent artists. So you and Emily have put forth the energy to create space for collaboration. That's not just only other painters or other musicians, but all these other team members. So can you give some encouragement to other artists and creatives like you and Emily to consider, how do they approach strategic partnerships in this regard and build teams around what they're doing?
Well, that's something so interesting about being part of the Web3 is community is everything. Some of the people that you mentioned there, in terms of our partnership, it's the we've approached some of the members and we've talked about them, and they've sent their lyrics in, and they're going to be part of our project, which is really interesting. And some of them is because we've been quite good friends, like I'm part of the community for, like you mentioned, Time and like Long Necky Ladies. I chat to those people all the time, and they're amazing. I think they're huge, incredible assets, as owning a PFP of a thing, you get part of a community, and you could end up working with them and like helping each other out. I think many of the communities love working with one-on-one artists, and that's, to me, that's the main reason you buy a PFP and buy into the community. I mean, the art can be incredible, but the access to the community and the resources they might provide is really like the main thing that you want to be taking advantage of if you're spending money to access the community. But it doesn't have to be about that. Sometimes I just chat and learn and play like games with them, and it is sometimes it's just pure fun. But in terms of collaborations, I've worked with loads of incredible artists in the space, and that's probably my favorite thing to do is, I meet another artist, I love their work, and we get to know each other, and either I say to them or they say to me, do you fancy working on a piece? And we do, and that's a really important and a great piece of advice I'd give to any artist. Like, do those collaborations, reach out to people, because you get to know their fan base and their collector base, and they get to know yours, and the whole process in itself is just amazing. And I meet many of these other artists in these communities, and the same for big brands. I think that's quite interesting, because as everyone still knows, we seem to be quite early in the space, and if it carries on going exponentially, then brands and big companies are going to be looking for people who know what they're doing, and they're going to be coming into the space, and they're going to be looking at us. They're going to be asking, like, I want to do this, how do I do it? So you could end up being a Web3 advisor for the biggest companies in the world, just because we've been in it 18 months longer than they have. And those partnerships are important. They have, you help them and they help you. So I think collaborations in general is incredible.
Well, I want to ask, is there anywhere besides Bstract_art on Twitter that folks should connect with you on? Is there a place that you'd like people to go check out? Maybe where you and May are collaborating? Please feel free to tell us about that before you wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, my DMs are open. Feel free to check. Anyone can message me anytime. I have a Discord. A lot of my collectors and friends I've met along the way have joined there. I really just kind of, all my alpha about my artwork, I put it in there first, and I get opinions on people. And that's one actually the things I really love. I put some artwork out and I say, look, what do you guys think? And I take on people's feedback, and I've kind of been doing it a one-man show, just running all my social media, running my Discord, doing the artwork, recording the music, the list goes on. And I like the feedback from the people who are involved. So the collectors who have purchased pieces of mine, I go, look, what do you think? What should be our next moves for next month? And sometimes they have incredible suggestions. So if you wanted to like chat to me anytime, DMs, or jump in the Discord, and I'm there, and everyone else can have a chat and come meet some amazing people.
Well, not everybody that is an artist is willing to do that. We honor it. Looking forward to seeing you in London. For anybody that watched us live or sees this archive, thank you so much for your attention. And I look forward to bringing another conversation like this all over here.